What's going on, people? Welcome to Live Palace News. As you can see from the title, we're going to be having a general discussion. As we've got some time off and we're far into the season now, it's time to talk about Eddie Nketiah. There are a split decision, in my opinion. There are some people who are saying give him time. Some people already written him off. But we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Eddie Nketiah so far this season, as well as actual news, which we'll get into. As always, please hit the like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I think for the yesterday's stream, we're here over 150 likes. So thank you to every single one of you that's done that. Let's see if we can hit similar numbers now. Once again, it's really appreciative for every single like and comment as well. We'll be answering questions like we did on yesterday's show. So put a Q&A dot before it. I know some of you have already done that. And then we can go through those as we wrap up. Tuesday. Palace on Marbella. Have you seen the photos?
Yeah, seen a few of them.
Few touch challenges. Seems like they're enjoying themselves. But yeah, as you can see from the title, we'll get into it. We're going to get into the numbers as well. How I plan to do this right now is we'll talk about our own opinions of Nketiah so far from the eye test, and then we'll get into some numbers as well to see whether some of the claims are true or not. But what have you made of Nketiah, man? As you know, there's been a divide ever since he joined, to be fair, because of the high price tag, which I don't think has helped him, around £25 million up to £30 million with add-ons. And he hasn't started that many games so far this season. He's played in a 10 role. He's come on in a 9 role. He's scored a few goals in different competitions, but he hasn't really been a settled figure so far. I think we can all admit that in terms of, regular appearances off the bench. He not necessarily. I know lately he's been getting more opportunities, but he's had to wait a long time for it. What have you made of Nketiah?
I mean, overall, in the grand scheme of things, he's been a solid option as a backup striker. I mean, I think that's the only way you can put it. Now, I think a lot of the displeasure with that is the fact that he is a £25 million decent backup striker, and I think that's the biggest point of contention is how much he cost us for the role that he plays for us. Now, we don't run the club, so we don't call the shots on how much we spend on guys. But I mean, realistically, for like Benteke is saying here, realistically, he hasn't been good enough, which is a shame. Although I think most fans expected it. Hasn't been good enough in comparison to how much we pay for him. I fully agree. I mean, we paid a whole lot of money to get him. But I mean, for the role that we really want him to be, which is our backup striker, I mean, he's done what we wanted him to do in a lot of ways. And luckily, the play is picking up. We're starting to see more goals and things. But yeah, I think the biggest point of contention is just how much we pay for the dude. And like honestly, it hasn't been that long. And not to mention, let's be quite candid. When we first made the move for him and we started the season, we weren't playing him in his position either. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be considerate of the fact that we tried to shoehorn a striker into a position that he's never played before, that he's never done before, and we wanted him to try and have success. So there's also that to the conversation as well.
Yeah. I do think the price tag plays a big part in terms of people's decision making, because naturally, so I think what I hear the most from people is that why have we paid £25 million for a backup striker? Right. We're Crystal Palace. We shouldn't be paying that much. Normally, we pay that much for starters. But for me, I don't really care about the price tag, because despite paying that much money, we barely spent any money in the window because of the outgoings as well. So if we want to bring in a better striker than Odsonne Edouard, which I think Nketiah is, sometimes you have to pay. And Dougie Freedman has earned the right to take risks with Nketiah, with players like Nketiah. Why? Because of all of the business that he's done so far. So, we've been linked with Nketiah for a while. It's not a major surprise when we got him towards the end of the summer window. And Dougie clearly has a vision. He had a vision for Sarr. We're kind of seeing it so far this season, but I don't think he's played that many games. I think the stats are a bit flawed when you're looking at the appearances that he's had, because some of those appearances are barely any minutes, 10, 15 minutes, or some of them are like a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but it all adds up.
And then you're making appearances out of position for a good amount of them at the beginning of the year too. You know.
Yeah. Sorry. I think Patrick's watching and he just sent a message, which
Did
caught me
he?
off guard about him clipping the show. He's been clipping up a lot of shows. I don't know what's up with him. He's got too much time in his hands. But yeah, like, and that's the biggest thing. When you see the stats, I've seen it from social media pages. Nketiah, what's your thoughts on him? 20 appearances for Crystal Palace, 1 goal. It's like, we can dive into those 20 appearances, and we will in this show. How many of these appearances has he really started? How many of these appearances, has he even played in this position? Because for me, if you play Eze up front, that's a different player to playing Eze as a number 10. So if we're using that criteria, right, and that's with different players, like Gay, he's a different midfielder than he is a centre back. He's like the obvious, but sometimes it can be ignored. It feels like it can be ignored because Nketiah is a striker, but despite him playing in the number 10 role, he gets the same amount of scrutiny like that is his position. That is not his position. And maybe we can talk about whether Glasner rates him or not, or we can get into different topics. There's a lot to get into. But I've got faith in him. I have got faith in him. He's showing glimpses of promise. I don't think he's had enough opportunities for him to shine at the level that he should be doing. And we've seen that in the past with the likes of Mateta, who's now thriving. Before Mateta got all of these opportunities, I mean, he was 1 week playing, another week not playing, then he might play 5 games and be dropped to the bench for Odsonne Edouard. So it will just change. It will just change continuously. But with Nketiah now, we're kind of seeing, like, from the Mateta criteria, we're kind of seeing why Nketiah could be struggling right now in terms of goals.
Right,
because
it's like
he's not getting that many opportunities.
Why would Eddie Nketiah be playing really, really well for us right now when he's behind arguably the hottest striker in the Premier League? Arguably.
And I think that plays
Why would you be having a good season? Why would you be having great returns? You're getting sporadic minutes because you're playing behind JP, who is literally, outside of Erling Haaland, probably the hottest striker in the Premier League. No, Eddie Nketiah should not be. Yeah, Eddie should not be setting the world on fire.
Yeah, it's a stat. I think only Haaland has had more goal contributions so far this calendar year than Mateta. So Mateta, I think that doesn't help him either because you can't drop Mateta. How many players can come into the side and drop Mateta in the first place? And we're talking about strikers in the Premier League. There isn't that many with the form that he's in right now. So that doesn't also help him. So Nketiah, at the end of the day, is not getting proper opportunities, which is understandable. It is understandable. But then you can also look at the flip side that even, in certain games where we might be winning, could he get 5 or 10 minutes? Why in certain games hasn't Oliver Glasner used them a bit more? There is that case as well. But yeah, let's go through some of you lot's thoughts in the chat, and then we can look at the stats as well. Thanks to everyone that's liked the video already, by the way. Really appreciate you all. Gaika saying it's far too early to judge Nketiah. Most of the appearances have been 10, 15 minutes here and there, and needs a run of games, but JP is undroppable. But I'm sure Eddie appreciates it. The biggest thing about Eddie as well that I like is that whenever he scores or whenever players talk about him, it seems like his attitude is on point. Like, there isn't any indication that this guy is sulking.
He's a pro's pro.
Players have been saying, I think it was Gay that said it. I'm pretty sure other players have said it as well. I can't remember the individual names, but I've heard it a few times now in recent times, especially, that he's been performing well in training, but he hasn't really got opportunities, and maybe he deserves more opportunities. So that's the thing about Nketiah. And if you watch the Amazon documentary with Arsenal, like, he was there telling Lokonga, I remember there was a clip telling Lokonga, like, keep your head up. Like, this is part of the game. You can't play it every week. I'm pretty sure he came to Palace thinking that he's going to be a regular starter. But it's good. It's good for Nketiah that JP's there. It's good for JP that Nketiah's there knocking on the door. Because before, with Edouard, who's now not even appearing in Leicester's side, it was in the category of having a player there for the sake of it. It just didn't work out. I'm pretty sure he'll get sold this summer. But Nketiah is he's a player that could come off the bench or could push JP. And I think he has pushed JP so far this season. And I think they're both doing well. You need healthy competition to thrive up the table. So he's an upgrade. He's an upgrade on Edouard. And that's what matters to me. I'm not really
that is true. You can't, and that's one thing I don't think you can really dispute at this point, is that he is an upgrade as our second striker option.
Yeah. Colin's saying, I think the main problem is that we have a way of playing and utilizing Mateta's strengths in way we play. So now we have to find the right way to play when Nketiah replaces Mateta. Do you think there is an issue there in terms of playing style when it comes down to Nketiah as well?
Well, I mean, I think you'd be foolish to say that they're the same type of striker. They're very different strikers. Let's be completely honest. I think it just so happens that with somebody like JP's abilities, I think, cover a wider spectrum than Eddie's in a lot of ways. With being able to play with your back to the goal, his link up play ability. I mean, Mateta's shown some great ball handling skills as well as passing skills too. He's really shown a complete package. Whereas, Eddie does have his deficiencies in certain areas. Even though, shout out to him, he scored two great goals with his head very recently. But once again, JP is just playing at a very, very, very high level right now, and you just have to recognize that.
Yeah. Benteke is a GOAT, saying even as a backup, he hasn't done enough, in my opinion, with a heavy price tag and only one league goal. We'll get into the stats in regards to that.
Yeah, I mean, but once again, the price tag is what's being brought up first.
That's the biggest thing. The price
tag is by far the only point that people can truly argue on, because he hasn't played enough. One league goal, okay, that makes sense. He hardly plays.
Yeah,
but then he scored. He's got a goal return in the cups when he's played. So, I mean, we can bring up the whole one goal in the league thing, but he has played extremely sporadic minutes.
I think it's a price tag. I think that's where people.
That's always going to be. That's the only true argument that there is with him.
But we're going to have to spend money on. If we want to improve the squad, we're going to have to start doing this in terms of improving the squad depth. We're going to have to spend money. It's not going to always be cheap options. So yeah, Colin's saying I'm feeling we're still trying to figure out the best effective way with Nketiah up top, which isn't so smooth. How long do you give Eddie to get into rhythm? Time frame is hard. He needs to play.
Yeah, but if anything, he's scored, very recent, 2 out of the last 3 matches. So if anything, he's starting to get there too.
Yeah. Eddie just isn't that great. Over £100,000 a week, 30 million, way too much. He's 26. He's not a young player in the grand scheme of things. It's an L that may never pay off by earning a profit on him. But we were saying the same things about Mateta. We were saying the same things about Mateta as well when he first came to Palace. It took Mateta how long? Mateta's 27 now. When Mateta came to Palace, it was probably around 25, and it took hm a while. It took him a while.
25, I want to say.
Yeah, exactly. It took him a while to get to the level he's at right now. So, and the only way that he got there is because he played minutes. He had consecutive minutes. He actually got a run of games, and he got feel for it. And for that reason, I think if we didn't have the Mateta scenario, then I'll say, all right, fair enough. But we've literally got a player who maybe in a way had a similar scenario in terms of not getting that many opportunities and therefore not scoring as many goals, and not even just as many goals, but this whole game being a bit rusty. But as soon as the game started kicking in and he started playing more, that's when he saw an improvement. So for that reason, I'm not giving up on Eddie just yet. I won't do, not now, because I'm not going to repeat the same mistake that I made with JP with Eddie. Maybe down the line we can have a proper discussion about giving them up, but some people already have, and I respect everyone's opinion.
All I can say is I appreciate having a player with that caliber being available to us. Let me just say
exactly, 100%. If anyone can get the best out of him, it's Oliver Glasner. Eddie just needs time and a good run of minutes. 100% agree with that as well. We'll save Patrick's question. I hope Eddie does well, but the price tag will always be an issue unless he comes good. But why would it be an issue? When we're selling play, I don't understand why the price tag would be an issue.
No, like I said, I think the price tag is an issue because you don't pay that. Most clubs like our size with our type of payroll and funds aren't going to go out and spend almost 30 million pounds on a guy that's not going to be your main striker. I think that is the issue.
But we need to change that mentality, though. Sometimes you're going to have to pay those kinds of monies to improve the squad as a whole. I think that's a mistake that we've made so far by being in the Premier League. Look at Esse. We paid £50 million for Esse. He's not on the bench. He's barely getting any minutes. Eventually, down the line, he might get minutes. But
And if
and
it could be, and it, like you're right though, it could be a shift. It could be a shift in what we see from us as a squad, and honestly, as a club, that could be a sign of us doing better, a sign of us wanting to do better. It's like, hey, we're in a position where we can spend more in certain areas now. That $12 to $15 million purchase isn't a guy that's going to be a starter for us all the time.
Yeah. Eddie's not knocking on the door. The Ipswich was his biggest chance to make an impact and get some credit in the bank for the Southampton game, and showed he's not Premier League quality. But then again, the Millwall game, he did. Like, he hasn't had a run of game. You can't just look at one game and say that's it. Like, he just, if he doesn't take it and it's finished. Like, we're talking about consecutive minutes. Mateta didn't have one good game. Mateta had a run of games, and then eventually he kicked in. Playing. He didn't start the Millwall game. I know he was basically a starter because of the early injury, but he didn't even start that game. So it's hard to judge. Honestly, it's hard to judge right now, in my opinion anyways. He's just awful 1v1. So Bruno, he's great from distance and great improvisationally. Price tag plays a massive part for obvious reasons. You can't say that's the only thing people bring up. If he cost Mateta's price tag, then we'd be more calm about him, but he's our record signing. He's our record signing, but once again, there's a reason why I don't sign him.
He's not our record signing. Number one, he's not our record signing. Our record signing is still Benteke.
Oh yeah. I think it's talking about recent times.
I mean, recently he's probably one of the more expensive ones, but he's definitely not our record signing.
Yeah. You're right. Ipswich was a bad matchup for Eddie. They are a big physical side. It's obvious that he would struggle in that game. Pay too much. It was never great for Arsenal, let's be honest. More service and poor numbers. He never really had a good run of games for Arsenal, to be fair. I think that was the issue. We're in the first round, we looked at it as well. It never.
I one of the reasons why he decided to join us.
One or two run of games, but then he kind of stopped there. I think Eddie should play more, and Esse should as well. Maybe over time they do play more. Let's actually look at his stats then. This is according to Football Reference, and then we'll go through more comments. But as always, people, even if you're joining now, hit the like button if you haven't already done so. T, can you see this?
Yep, sure can.
Okay, so we'll just look at similar players to Nketiah based on stats anyway. Semenyo at Bournemouth, Martinelli at Arsenal, Brennan Johnson at Tottenham. Ismail Assar, funny enough, we can look at his stats, but based on his recent stats, he's a similar player in Europe's top 5 leagues in the last year. So interesting. Assar appears on that list. But now let's look at his actual stats over on the left-hand side. This is versus attacking midfielders / wingers as well. So
which
in
is
terms of
interesting.
What do you say?
It's interesting as compared to attacking midfielders and wingers and not strikers.
That's what I was thinking. Can I not change that?
That's interesting.
Exactly. I don't know why they've done that.
Maybe because most of his appearances once again have been in the 10.
Coming in 10, exactly. Coming in number 10. So this is the problem. Non-penalty goals per 90, 0.12. He's on the 11th percentile for that, which is very low. Non-penalty expected goals is very high. So if you combine these two, it does seem like he's underperforming in that category. Shots total in the Europe's top 5 leagues for players similar to the position that he's played, top 95 percentile. 3.68 shots per 90 minutes. Assists, 24 percentile. Oh, funny enough, look, you can see other players. Shirky is the highest in that regards.
He's absolutely balling right now.
Yeah, he's absolutely balling. I mean, look, he's being compared to like the likes of Dembele and stuff. Non-penalty expected goals. So yeah.
It just looks like it's just giving you an idea of what high is and what low is.
Jake. Yeah. This is non-penalty expected goals plus expected assists per game. So if you combine both of the stats, he's in the top 86 percentile, 0.59, and the average is 0.47.
So actions is really low.
What was that?
Shot creating actions is really low, 15th percentile.
Yeah. Yeah, it is low in that regards. He's below average there, 2.85% per 90 minutes.
So
Boss is
reading
tempted.
this, so
Boss is
reading
tempted.
this,
It's like,
yeah, it's tempted is really high. So what this reads out to me as is he's not being clinical. He's getting a lot. He's getting opportunities, but he's not converting.
in terms
And
of
that
what?
makes me think, because if you look at, okay, when you're looking at the amount of shots taken, he's in
Oh
the
yeah,
95th.
yeah.
He's in the 95th percentile of shots taken, but his non-penalty goals is in the 11th percentile. It means you're taking shots and you're not scoring.
But sometimes I feel like
And
he takes shots. I don't know if you remember as well, but sometimes, especially at the start, he was just taking shots for the sake of taking shots.
exactly, which means he's a
It was
high
not like good
volume
quality
shooter.
shots.
Yeah,
It
he's a
was
high
just
volume
more
shooter,
shots out
but
of
he's not a
frustration.
high volume scorer.
Mm,
It makes me think about Ipswich, because like in Ipswich, he should have scored. He could have had that early opening goal when he had the one-on-one with the keeper, but he didn't convert it. And it makes you think, like, he's getting opportunities, he's not converting. I mean,
mm.
that's what those numbers say to me. And then the shot creating actions and the assists, he's not looking to create for others necessarily either.
Do you think this could change with a run of games? Like a bit more consecutive games, maybe coming off the bench.
Honestly, yeah. Honestly, the more minutes you play, the more opportunities you have to be on the pitch. The more chances you can see to score goals, to create actions. So yeah, I definitely think, honestly, the more time he gets there out on the pitch, the more we can see from him. But I mean, when he comes into situations where he might get into a game late, 5-10 minutes, in a situation where you're just trying to be as active as possible and get shots off and things like that, then it probably is probably not going to show up
Yeah.
well on the stats.
It's about crunching all of those datas, even including the 5-10 minutes appearances off the bench, and then converting it to the per 90 average. So it's like when you're coming on for barely any minutes, that's what I'm saying. The shot total, in fact, it doesn't surprise me, because I think that's been one of his problems, especially at the start. As I was saying, he was taking a lot of shots, and they weren't good quality shots. It seemed like more about frustration shots, just trying to create something out of nothing. And I think that's due to not having as many minutes, for example. But in terms of passes attempted, one of the low, if not the lowest.
Yeah, he's not coming. He is not out there to share the ball. He is out there to try to score. Like, and that's why playing him as a 10 is not going to work, because that's not his game. He's not looking to share the ball like that. He's not looking to create shots for others. That's not his game. It's never been his game. He's a striker. Like, and that's why using him in the beginning of the year, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, putting him in the 10 spot, it doesn't work that way, because that's not his game. Creating for others is not his game.
Yeah, and I think that plays a part as well, right? When you look at, and this is the problem, because this is attacking midfielders / wingers, so you're basically comparing them to, like,
you're comparing them to Rayan Cherokee.
Yeah, exactly, rather than the strikers.
Honestly, I think, for real, if we saw these numbers compared to strikers, they would look very different. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
He's probably taking a ton of shots for an attacking midfielder. Yeah, he's taking a ton of shots for an attacking midfielder. Maybe he's not taking a ton of shots for a striker.
Yeah, that's the thing. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Maybe for the striker, he goes down. Maybe the passes attempted or pass completion could average out to a higher percentile among strikers, or it might be lower. So yeah, based on this, I think he's doing, on eye test and this, he's taking too many shots at times, wild shots. I think recently that's kind of changed. I can't remember for the Ipswich one. Ipswich, he should have scored that chance at the start. I think that was poor from him. But yeah, progressive carries, top 65 percentile. Also, Dembele is just, he's like, he's very high. But this is the thing, he's been compared to Paqueta and Dembele.
Exactly. Like, those aren't players that truly play his position. Those are guys he would be compared to if he was only making appearances as a right-sided 10, or as a 10 for us in general. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know why they've done it like this, though, to be fair. I genuinely don't know why they've done it like this.
Like I said, the only thing that I can think of is the fact that I might have to look it up. How many appearances has he made at the 10 this season as compared to his appearances.
Here we go. I think this is the problem. Look, now we can get into the games that he's played, right?
Yeah, look how many games he's gone in as an attacking midfielder.
Yeah, and
this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think
we're complaining about the production of a striker, and he's not. And the majority of his appearances that he's made for us have not been as a striker.
Yeah. So here we go.
You know what I'm saying?
So the first 3 games that he started at Palace, as you can see, they highlighted, were as attacking midfielders. I remember it was him, Eze, and
it was him, Eze, and Mateta.
Yeah, exactly. So he was starting there, which in fact he scored a goal against QPR despite not even starting as a striker in that game. That was in the League Cup 3rd round game.
Mm-hmm.
And then once again, Everton, it was attacking midfielder. I remember that game. He played attacking midfielder. And then the game that he started up front was after the international break against Forest. Away from home. And he had like 1 or 2 take-ons, I remember. But we were awful as a team in that game. We were genuinely awful. We was like Eze, Nketiah, and I think Kamada was in that game. And there was basically a bunch of individuals running. As a team at that point, at the start of the season, we were struggling. We were struggling to create chances. We were struggling to have like Munoz get involved, Mitchell get involved, and it was all a mess. But that was his first start, which he got subbed off. Then again, he comes on as an attacking midfielder. He didn't start. He gets dropped for the Tottenham game, which we won. And then he comes on. He starts as an attacking midfielder against Villa in the League Cup. We won that game.
Started as one against Wolves.
We drew that game. Against Wolves,
by far, he's made more appearances for us as an attacking midfielder than he has as a striker this season.
So how many games has he actually started as a striker?
Looking at these numbers.
So I'm going to highlight it. We've got 1 here against Forest away from home in October. And then
the next one would have been Stockport in the Cup, which was, 2 months later?
I'm going to highlight them all. So he's actually started 3 games up front.
Three matches. He started 3 matches for us at forward. And even then, the appearances that he's made for us at forward have been, I would say, sparse would be the word I would use prior to.
Yeah.
So once again, you try to make a striker, a guy who's played striker his whole career. You try to make him into an attacking midfielder for the majority of a season, and it hasn't worked out for him. I wonder why. Just like when we try to make Edward a left winger, it didn't work out too great.
Yeah.
You can't be mad at a guy for not playing really well in a position that he's not used to playing, is all I'm saying.
So the games that he started up front, he started a game on the 21st of October. And then another game he started up front was on the 12th of Jan. And then 8th of March. So it's like months apart of starting games up front. Now, we don't expect him to start games up front, right? Because we made that argument at the start. You cannot drop JP. A lot of strikers cannot drop JP. But
then how can we complain? But then for somebody to complain and say he's only got 1 goal in the league, bro.
He's only started 2 games in the league.
These are cup matches.
No, exactly. No. Ipswich he started in the league. Actually, he started as a striker. He started the Forest game in the league.
2 times.
And he started Ipswich, He started 2 games in the league and scored 1 goal in the 2 games that he started in the league.
and then the other appearances in league haven't even been as a striker. But we're going to complain about him?
Now, this is where, in my opinion, the stats get flawed. And by the way, I need to get my laptop charger. Do you want to go through some comments quickly?
Sure. Yeah, we'll go through some. Actually, this is a good question, Twisted. How much is Eddie worth today? So I think we paid 25 for him. I'd say he's probably hovering in the 18 to 20 range right now, today, possibly. Either way. He says, this is my point. So Smack Trick Bateman says, this is my point. He needs to spend time in his actual role. Eddie will come good. Patience, people. And I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, here we are. I think we're trying to, I don't want to say judge the worth or how good he's been doing to this point, but we're only through about 3/4 of a way through a season, maybe. And we're sitting here trying to judge whether he's worthy or not. And he hasn't played majority of the season in the position that he's played his whole career.
Yeah. So 2 league starts up front. I want to get into the other numbers as well. So start 2 league games up front, 1 league game in the cup. 1 cup game up front, not league game in the cup. Cup game up front, and then in the 1 cup game that he started up front was Stockport, which he didn't score. So he's got in the 2 league games that he started, he's got 1 goal. Well, he's got 1 goal in general. He hasn't scored. He hasn't scored in the games that he started, to be fair, and he hasn't got an assist as well. But that's interesting. 2 league starts, and how many?
We haven't paid $30 million for him. We had 5 in add-ons, which I am confident he has not met at this point. So
yeah,
it was definitely 25.
I don't think he's met that so far. And
how 25? It was 25 plus 5. Yeah.
We're talking about appearances. Does it have the numbers here? It should have the numbers here somewhere.
Does it show it at the very bottom?
Yeah, technically it does. It shows the games. It shows the results. So
not the appearances.
Yeah. So here it shows 25.
25 appearances total.
Yeah, 12, 16, and 7. 25 appearances. That's including league and cup games. And that's the thing now, when you put out 25 appearances, it's amazing. The narrative is amazing. 25 appearances and he scored 2 goals. It's amazing. Like he's the biggest flop there is out there. But
you also have to think about how many minutes too.
Like but that's what I'm saying though. You don't get considered. It's easy to talk about the appearances. It's easy to talk about the appearances and easy to add that flop narrative to it because it just fits the narrative with Nketiah because he's always had this narrative since he was at Arsenal that he's a flop. He's not good enough for the Premier League. Now,
yeah, he's only played what? Let me see.
He's played 1,000 minutes in total.
1,000 minutes in 25 appearances total.
Yeah, which if we average it, 1,000 divided by so on average, so I divided 1,057 by 90 to average it for per 90 on average. So that's 11
total matches.
No,
full matches.
Minutes. Oh yeah, 11 total matches. Yeah.
It will be so over if you do it per
11.7. So let's say 12. So it's split 12 in total matches, and that's with this is the issue though. Now when you look at the minutes, he got the minutes at the start of the season, right? But he got them as an attacking midfielder. That was a problem. But then his minutes it drops from. Of course, he'd never really played up front. It drops from he played against Tottenham, played against Villa, Wolves. It drops from here onwards.
I mean, I'm really happy you mentioned.
Yeah, November onwards.
You mentioned the per 90 though, because if you think about it per 90, if it's 11 matches total,
no, it's played 11 matches, not 11 minutes.
Right, 11 matches
on average.
If my striker has played a full 90 11 times, and he scored 4 goals, 4 goals and 1 assist, like that's not actually horrible. 4 goals and
11 appearances, not that bad. When you consider
it's not that bad per 90.
Yeah, exactly. And then it basically drops off though. He basically drops off in terms of appearances. So in terms of minutes, you can see from November onwards against Newcastle, 14, and he played a minute. And this is why the appearance stats annoys me. He played a minute once, twice. He's played less than 5 minutes, 5 or so less minutes. 1, 2, 3, 4 times.
5, 6 times.
How?
6?
1, 2.
You said 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
No, 4 times. Oh no, 5 times. 5 times.
5 times. Yeah, 5 times. 5 times.
Yeah.
So it's 5. So it's 5 appearances. So it's 5 appearances of the 25 that we talked about, where he
played less than 5 minutes.
Where he played 5 minutes or less too.
Mm. If we're talking about, so what would you consider, T, as a decent
Sub
amount of minutes
appearance,
off the bench? So we can look at that as well.
I'd say 15.
Yeah, I'll say 15 at least, right? If you play
Yeah.
15 minutes or so, decent.
15 minutes is a legitimate appearance. So like
Yeah,
that's
15
so
plus.
saying that you come in the 75th minute or earlier is a decent sub appearance.
Yeah.
Like
so let's count how many
5-minute appearances, he can't even get a match rating score.
Well, the thing is, he scored in one of those 5-minute appearances against,
which is wild.
Yeah,
which is wild.
Exactly. So let's count how many games that he's played coming off the bench, 15 minutes or longer. He played against Brentford, 19 minutes. Off the bench, by the way, he started. We already included Stockport game as a starter, playing up front. So off the bench, 15 minutes or so. Played against Arsenal twice, Brighton, which you got an assist. I forgot about that. And then in games that he hasn't started, Tottenham. That's pretty much it. In games that he hasn't started, because of course he's had appearances off the bench, but they've been less than 15 minutes.
Between the short appearances or the start
less than 11. Yeah. So he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 appearances off the bench with 15 minutes or so longer.
So what we would then call 5 quality bench appearances.
5 quality bench appearances. So in terms of the 25 appearances, right? 5 quality bench appearances, 2 league starts, and 1 cup game up front. So we're talking 8 games of either 50 minutes or so or starts up front. The rest of them has been either less or just playing out of position. You can see against West Ham. He came on, which he won a penalty, but it's less than 15 minutes. He still won a penalty in that game.
And not to mention some of these quality appearances, he came in at attacking midfielder and not at forward too. So he spent some time during this 19 minutes against Brentford. He spent some time at attacking midfield and not at forward.
Yeah.
So even more so those minutes are even being chopped between being out of position as well.
But it's just because I never really looked at the numbers till now as well. And it's kind of a surprise. Maybe for you lot, it's not a surprise, but it's kind of a surprise to me. I guess him starting games up front, that's not a surprise because he's only had 2 league starts up front out of the 25 games that he's played. And one of them is a cup game as well. So 3 starts in 25 games up front. He's had more starts, of course, for Palace, but we're talking about up front. And then we're talking 5 games that, he's come off the bench. And we're not even talking up front. 5 games he's come off the bench and he's had 15 minutes or longer. And if you look at these 5 games that he's had 15 minutes or longer, they're split apart.
Yep, as I said, yep, they're split. They're split between a lot of them are split. But this 24-minute is only attacking midfield against Tottenham. Is only attacking midfield. But then he split time with Arsenal, split time with Brentford. So I think the thing that I would say personally for Eddie Nketiah is that it hasn't been long enough for us. And we haven't seen enough of him in his natural position. That's the way that I feel about it.
Yeah. Well, not just you. Those are facts. If he's a striker.
Not to mention what I'm saying is a factual truth.
Yeah. 3 games up front in 25 appearances. And the other games, he's come on, or he's either started as like a number 10 rather than a number 9. So what do we do, T, going forward from here? Is it a case of just being patient? Do you think he'll come good? Do you think maybe next season he gets a bit more minutes or towards the end of this season?
I think
for him to kick on, we need to make sure that some of these highlights are a bit more consistent, in my opinion.
And I think what we do moving forward is also what we've seen us doing prior to this now. We have made moves to ensure that we have players to play in the attacking midfield positions so that Eddie Nketiah doesn't have to play there. You have the development of Justin Devaney, which has allowed him to play in that 10 role. You have the addition of Romain Esse, who can now play in that 10 role. You have a guy like Kamada who can deputize there as well. We have multiple players, the return of Matthias França. We have multiple players that now can be in those 10 roles to where we don't have to put Eddie Nketiah in that position any longer. So when Eddie Nketiah plays, he's coming in as our number 9. He's playing in the forward position. He's playing in his natural position. I think that is the thing moving forward that's going to help him and help us the most moving forward.
Yeah. To be fair, after looking at this, it's made me feel a bit better as well in terms of the circumstances and trying to find the underlying maybe problem in terms of why he hasn't scored that many goals. I look at the appearances. So, of course, make sure to check out Football Reference for more stats as well. But it's good that we can highlight it as well. It's interesting about him playing 50 minutes or so longer off the bench. There's only 5 of those appearances. I mean, we're talking about 8. We're talking about 8 appearances for Nketiah that is solid minutes, in my opinion. Like, solid contention. 8 appearances. And I know he hasn't scored those goals in these 8 appearances that we're counting. The 8 appearances, by the way, for reference, in case you're joining now, I'm counting the 2 starts that he's had up front, not as a number 10, because he's a striker, and that 1 start in the cup game that he's had up front against Stockport, which he wasn't that great at, I know. And the bench appearances that he's had, not even up front, by the way, some of these bench appearances, 5 of these bench appearances that he's had 15 minutes or longer, he's played only, Brentford was forward attacking midfielder. We'll count Brentford. He's had 1, 2, 3, actually Arsenal 4. Yeah, 4. 50 minutes or so longer. He's had 4 out of 5 appearances as being as a striker rather than attacking midfielder. But 8 solid appearances, and he's got 4 goals in that period, in my opinion. But yeah, £25 million is maybe you might say, out of the 25 appearances, why is he coming on so much as a number 10? But maybe that changes. But is there any personal goals towards him towards the end of the season, or is it a case of just waiting for next season? Because it's hard to say when we've got so many games coming up and games that we ideally can't really drop that many points in.
I think the goal for Eddie Nketiah is just to provide quality play whenever he touches the pitch, goals, assists, whatever he needs to do. I think that's the goal, is just to contribute to winning football games. Like that's got to be it. Like we don't know how much you're going to be out there or how often or how long, but when you get out there and you're in your natural position, make things happen. I think that's part of the goal.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I think next season he'll have to kick on. Let's go through some questions and also some comments that you lot have left as we were looking at the stats. And he's saying we paid the cash because we need 2 quality strikers, and while Mateta's playing like he is, Haaland would not play. CV saying why pay that cash for him? The reason why we paid that cash for him is because we wanted to have an improvement on Odsonne-Édouard, and we see Nketiah as an improvement on Edouard, and we just had to pay a bit more. There's players on Palace.
For reference, Andy's first comment that we showed first was the response to CB's question here.
For example, I don't think France is going to be starting ahead of Eze. I don't think he will be. So despite him coming back from injury, I don't think he will do that. So France is going to be a £20 million player that we have on our bench. But the difference is with France, you can come on the pitch and we hopefully cause an impact. Romain Esse, £15 million, come on the pitch, cause an impact. Sometimes you do have to pay the money to have players that you are hopeful that can come on the pitch and cause an impact. And this has been a problem with Palace for a long period of time, where we've resigned players, and then they haven't. After what you done yesterday,
after what I did
yesterday. and they haven't really. They're just at the club for the sake of adding up numbers. I'm not going to mention names, but there's been players where it's been a cheaper option. So sometimes you have to pay. So yeah. And I think that's the decision that we made as a football club, and we'll see if it works out in the long term. Tom saying, has Eddie done something wrong that makes you rate him like that? He has not been to training. Are there problems with other players or managers? It's been the opposite. It seems like he's been very good in training, and his attitude, it seems like it's been good based on what the players have been saying. So yeah,
It's just a lot of people have. Yeah, there's a good amount of people, a good contingency of people, just feel like he hasn't been good enough and hasn't done enough.
yeah. Smatrick saying a lot of the games he's come on in, we've been behind, hence the reason for all the attempted shots. And I think he's been desperate as well. I don't know if that's only the case. I think he's been desperate to find a goal since joining Palace. Colin saying, good to see Mateta back. He looks ready to go again. Yeah, that is a positive as well.
Headband Mateta.
Yeah.
I wonder if he's. I'm really interested to see if he's going to try wearing in a match. That's what I'm interested to really see.
Surely in about 2 weeks' time, he should be good to go, right? Like maybe not. Why does he even need to wear headband?
Shirt.
I don't think he needs to wear headband. I don't know why he's wearing.
Here's why. Here's the immediate reason why I say wearing a headband is a good thing for him. He's bald. What happens to bald people? Bald people sweat. And what happens to sweat when you're bald? Sweat gets in your eyes.
Well, he hasn't been wearing a headband so far. He's been bald for
I know.
a minute.
And that might be why he's made the transition to having a headband.
But then you might have, yeah, exactly. As the weather's getting a bit hotter, you might have
exactly. You're gonna deal with a lot of sweat.
Yeah, that could be the case. That could be the case.
Headband and the tucked in shirt. Oh man.
Hey, iconic. There's a man that deserves a good cup run, which he's getting, and maybe some goals in the cup, and maybe a trophy. That's what that man deserves now. All right, cool. Let's go through some questions. If you haven't already done so, please hit the like button, people. Thank you for your support once again. If you have any questions, put a Q and a dot before it, and we'll answer it before we wrap up the show. The dog saying, do you lot think our style might actually suit our fixtures against the bigger teams?
It's kind of shown that it has. I mean, we've played really good against the bigger sides, and I don't know. It could be our style of play, but I think a big part of it is our manager and his ability to scout teams and strategize against teams. But yeah, I mean, we've played well. I mean, the thing that I love, D, and I hope that I think that you agree with me on this. It's so refreshing that now when we go against bigger sides, we have the confidence that we can and will win the game. Well, yeah, and that we're going into the match with the mindset that we're going to compete and win the match.
Yeah.
Back in those Roy days, he used to give you that feeling of, we hope we can just get a point.
And that's the reason why we're hopeful about going all the way in the cup, because we're looking at the list and we're saying, on our day, we can beat these teams that's left in the cup. I'm not saying we will.
We can beat them. We can beat them. Like that's
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So yeah. I think facing bigger sides due to the tactical style of play as well, because when you look at how some teams approach it, teams that we've kind of struggled against, even against Ipswich, they've pressed us well, but they also had a good defensive structure, and there wasn't that many spaces in behind. So some of these teams that we're going to be facing, we should expect to have spaces in behind, and we're better away from home. Newcastle, I'm looking at that game, and normally, Newcastle is a very hard ground to go to, but we'll see what happens with the Carabao Cup, and that's an interesting game away from home because they'll be up for it away from home, and there should be spaces in behind. Brighton at home, I don't think they're going to come to Selhurst Park and sit back because that's not their style. So I think these games do suit us because we like the counter-attack and we like using the pace that we've got in the side. So yeah, 100%. And that's why the rest of the season is exciting, but we take it game at a time, especially in the league. We have to go beat Southampton next. That's a must. And then from there, we go face Brighton and literally see where we're at. Also, another question saying, realistically, where do you see Palace in 2 years if Glasner stays in charge? I think even this season, top 10 should be the minimum aim, even if we don't get Europe. But in 2 years, Europe, if it's not this season.
Yeah, and in 2 years, I think that we are a legitimate top 10 Premier League team fighting for European spots. That's how I would put it. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if we back them properly and bring in the players. Because even this summer window, we're not talking about we need to sign so many players. So in 2 years' time, hopefully the squad should kind of be complete in that regards. Patrick saying Edward also played as a 10. Did we use that as a reason he didn't do well and why we now want to sell him?
I think I said it, Patrick. Edward didn't do well in the 10, and Edward didn't do well as a left winger because he's not a 10 or a left winger.
We can bring up the stats with Edward, and we can compare how many games he played as a number 10. We can do that quickly because I think
people want to sell Edward because when he played as a striker, he didn't play well enough for us. I think that's the reason why people are.
So we look at Edward's stats for last season.
No, I don't even want to get into that deep dive. We have 50 minutes.
No. You're right. But I'm just saying here, just quickly. It's going to be very quick because Edward hasn't played in the number 10 role as much as Nketiah has. I don't know where Patrick's getting this from. He's literally, you can see the games that's played up front 1, 2, 3, 4. You can just see it. You can see all the FWs rather than AMs. FW. I'm not even looking at the minutes. But yeah, that's not the case, Patrick. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not the case of Edward. Edward has played up front for the majority of his games. But yeah, so that's a flawed question in regards to that. JP is more of a hold-up player and Nketiah's half. The shoulder player, maybe France and SA plays with Nketiah, maybe you see him shine. That could be the case as well. Was Eddie Friedman signing? Maybe he just doesn't fit into Glas's game. I think he was because him.
We know he's Friedman signing because that was somebody who's been on Friedman's his radar for a while before Glasner got with us, I believe.
Yeah. T, how come you support Palace? And are you excited to experience Selhurst Park with the boys?
I support Palace because of one Wilfried Daze Zaha. Watched him play back in 2013, and he was playing for Côte d'Ivoire at the time. And I was like, yo, who is that dude? He dribbles a football like a basketball. And I found out that he played for Palace and started learning more about Palace and started supporting the club. Rap ever since.
And here you are. According to Transfer Market, across his whole career, he's played 192 games as a centre forward. I think it's all about Nketiah.
You're talking about Nketiah.
15 assists. Has he scored that many goals in his career?
That's impressive.
I don't know if that is right. That doesn't sound right.
Include? Okay, here's my question. I wonder if that 192 includes all of his international matches.
But yeah, I don't think. Oh, what for England?
He's scored a ton of goals for England's. U21s and things like that. He's like the all-time leading scorer for England. So if those goals are included, that's what I'm saying. If those goals are included, it inflates to that 85 goals like pretty significantly.
Actually, yeah, it's true. It is true. He's had 272 appearances actually, and he scored 93 goals, which is still crazy, and 19 assists as well.
Thanks, man.
It's true. But his goals have been scattered from like Premier League 2 as well, like academy football, includes everything. International football as well. But yeah, I didn't realize he's actually scored that many goals. All right, cool. Last question, then we're gonna wrap up. Which right wing back suits Eddie better, Ty or Chilwell? Chilwell.
I mean, I guess you would say Chilwell just because Chilwell can get him the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah, more often. Yeah, I guess. But I guess you could say the same thing for JP that Chilwell would suit him because Chilwell's going to suit a striker better because of the fact that he can get you the ball more frequently, more efficiently. So
exactly. But that's a deep dive on Eddie Nketiah. Even I've learned a thing. Hopefully you have as well.
And you know what I wanted to say earlier to you?
Yeah.
And you know what's gonna happen now.
What?
Patrick's gonna tell you that you finally dove into the numbers, into the stats, and you learned something and that you need to do it more often. I know.
Yeah, well, Patrick needs to as well. Patrick needs to as well. He asked the question about Elton Edward as attacking midfielder, and he hasn't had that many appearances as an attacking midfielder, so I had to go check that out myself. But yeah, what the stats help in terms of
they say men lie and women lie, but numbers don't.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. If you have enjoyed the show, please hit the like button, subscribe. We also done a Palace news yesterday. Just quickly before we wrap up, Chris Richards and Matt Tone have been called up to the US men's national team side for the upcoming games. So congrats to both of them as expected. And is there any other news that we missed? I think that is pretty much it. Yeah.
I think that's
I think that's it.
All. Shout out to the chat, man. Shout out to all you for tapping in. It's great conversation as usual.
Yeah. Well, look, we might be back tomorrow. We'll see. If you want to deep dive on another player, let us know, and we'll talk about them.
Feel free to leave those comments down in on YouTube for somebody else that we can
leave a comment down. If you have any topics, leave a comment down in the comment section after we wrap up, and then we might be able to get into topics like that if there's no news, because today there wasn't that much news, but I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed today's show, just looking at the numbers. But that's it from me and T. Take care, people, and hopefully see you tomorrow at around 7 p.m. But until then, up the Palace.